Welcome back to Horror Galaxy. Tonight, I have 4 disturbing true January stories for you. Before we begin, make sure you're subscribed, because once you step onto the Horror Galaxy, you don't walk alone. I was already halfway across the courtyard when I realized my sister had stopped behind me, and the sound that caught my attention wasn't her boots dragging or her voice calling my name, but the slow, uneven creak of the swing. I turned with irritation already rising in my chest, because it had been a long walk home from school and my fingers hurt from gripping her mittened hand too tightly. And there was nothing in that playground that should have been moving at all. The swing was rocking forward and back, just a little, the chains whispering against the metal frame in a way that made my stomach tighten before my mind could explain why. I told her to hurry up, told her not to mess around, but she wasn't looking at me. She was staring at the swing with her mouth slightly open, the way she did when she wanted to ask a question but was afraid of the answer. I took a step toward her and felt that strange resistance in my legs. Not like fear exactly, more like the moment when you know you've made a mistake, but haven't yet figured out how bad it is. I snapped my fingers in front of her face, trying to get her attention, and she finally blinked and looked at me. She asked me why someone was playing so late, and when I told her no one was there, she frowned and said she could hear them. I laughed then, forced and sharp, because I was 13 and I knew better than to admit being scared of a playground. I grabbed her hand again and pulled her toward the path, but the creaking followed us, steady and patient, like it didn't care whether we were listening or not. As we walked, I kept glancing back over my shoulder, telling myself I was just checking on her, but every time my eyes landed on that swing, it was still moving. It didn't slow, didn't speed up, just kept that same gentle rhythm, as if someone small and careful was shifting their weight back and forth. I told myself it was wind, even though the air felt dead and heavy, and the bare trees around the courtyard didn't move at all. I told myself a lot of things, because that's what you do when you're the older sibling, and you're supposed to be the brave one. My sister squeezed my hand and whispered that she didn't want to walk past it. I told her we didn't have a choice. Our building was on the other side of the playground, and going around would mean walking along the road, which our mother had forbidden after dark. I could already hear her voice in my head, sharp and tired, asking why we were late, so I set my jaw and led my sister straight toward the swings, every step making my chest feel tighter, like I was breathing through cloth. The sound changed as we got closer. It wasn't just creaking anymore. There was a soft, uneven scuffing, like shoes brushing against dirt, though the ground under the swings was frozen solid. My sister stopped again, harder this time, and when I turned to snap at her, I saw tears on her cheeks. She told me someone was talking. I wanted to tell her to stop lying, to stop being a baby, but the words dried up in my mouth because I heard it too then, faint but unmistakable, woven into the rhythm of the swing. It sounded like someone whispering right next to my ear, though I knew there was no one there. The words were broken, stretched thin, as if they were being pulled through something narrow. I couldn't make out much at first, just breath and sound, but then a phrase repeated itself, over and over, and my stomach dropped when I understood it. Don't push. Please don't push. The voice was high, not quite a child's, not quite an adult's, and it carried a panic that made my skin prickle. I froze, my sister's hand clenched in mine so tightly it hurt. I wanted to run, but my legs refused to cooperate. The swing slowed then, as if responding to the voice, and for one awful moment, I thought it was going to stop completely, which somehow felt worse than it moving. I took a step back, pulling my sister with me, and the swing lurched forward again, harder this time. the chains rattling loudly in the quiet courtyard. That was when I saw the marks in the dirt beneath it. Long, shallow grooves scuffed into the frozen ground, as if someone's shoes had been dragging there again and again. They weren't fresh, not really, but they were too clear to be old, and they pointed straight out from the swing toward the path we needed to take home. My sister started sobbing then, real sobs that shook her shoulders, and the sound cut through my fear like a knife. I knew I had to do something, had to end it, because standing there wasn't an option anymore. I shouted, my voice cracking, telling whoever it was to stop, to leave us alone. The whispering paused, and for a heartbeat everything went still. The swing hung motionless, chains creaking softly as they settled, and the silence pressed in so hard my ears rang. I almost believed it was over. Then the voice came back, clearer now. Closer, and it said my name. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mouth felt full of cotton, my tongue useless. The voice said my name again, and then it added something else, something that made my blood run cold. It said my sister's name too, drawn out and pleading. Don't push, it begged. It hurts when you push. Images flooded my mind then, unbidden and vivid. A smaller child, standing behind the swing, hands outstretched. Laughter, a shove. The sudden weightlessness of being pushed too hard. The ground rushing up. I shook my head violently, trying to dislodge the thoughts, but they clung to me, heavy and insistent. I realized with a sick certainty that whatever was speaking knew exactly why it was there, and exactly who it was talking to. I remembered stories then, half overheard from adults who thought we weren't listening. A boy who had died years ago, right there in that playground. An accident, they said. Children playing too rough. No one ever talked about it for long. I had never connected those stories to the swing before. Had never thought about where exactly it had happened. Standing there, listening to that voice, the pieces slid together in my mind with horrifying ease. My sister collapsed against me, her face buried in my coat, and I wrapped my arms around her, shaking. The voice grew more desperate. The words tumbling over each other now. Don't push. Please don't push. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to fall. The swing began to move again, faster than before, the chains shrieking softly with the strain, and I felt a surge of anger cut through my fear. Anger at whoever had pushed that child. Anger at myself for being scared. Anger at this thing for using our names, for making my sister cry. I yelled back, my voice hoarse, telling it we hadn't done anything, telling it to leave us alone. The swing surged forward higher, and I flinched as if it were going to strike us. The voice screamed then, a thin, tearing sound that made my head throb. I thought my knees were going to give out, but something in me hardened instead, a stubborn, desperate resolve. I pulled my sister away from the path, dragging her behind me, and took a step toward the swing. The voice faltered, the scream breaking into sobs. The swing slowed, then stopped, hanging there in the air. I stood a few steps away from it, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I told it quietly now that we weren't going to push it, that no one was going to push it ever again. The words felt strange in my mouth, like a promise I wasn't sure I could keep, but I meant them. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the whispering changed. The panic drained out of it, replaced by something softer, sadder. Thank you, the voice said. The chains creaked once, gently, and then the swing settled, completely still. The grooves in the dirt seemed to fade as I watched, softening until they looked like any other scuffed patch of ground. I didn't wait. I scooped my sister up, ignoring her protests, and ran the rest of the way home, my lungs burning, my ears straining for any sound behind us. Nothing followed. When we reached our building, I didn't slow until we were inside. The door locked behind us. My mother scolded us for being late, but when she saw my sister's red eyes and my shaking hands, her anger faded. We told her we'd had a scare, nothing more, and she let it go. That night, my sister slept in my bed, clinging to my arm like she used to when she was very small. I lay awake for hours, listening to the sounds of the building, replaying the voice in my head. I kept thinking about the promise I'd made, about what it meant. The next day, I went back to the playground alone, in the daylight, my heart racing with every step. The swing stood still, unmoving, innocent-looking. I walked up to it and wrapped the chains around the frame, knotting them as tightly as I could. Over the next few weeks, I did it again and again. Every time I walked my sister home, I checked the swing. If it had been untied, I retied it. If someone complained, I ignored them. Eventually, the housing committee removed it entirely, citing safety concerns. A new set was never installed. Years passed. We grew up. We moved away. I never heard the voice again. But even now, when I think about that night, I remember the weight of that promise, and the certainty that some fears don't go away. They just go quiet, waiting to see if you'll keep your word. I am stepping onto the bus when I realize my gloves are still in my locker at the factory, and for a second I almost turn back, but the doors hiss shut behind me before I can move. I stand there gripping the rail, breath caught, annoyed more than scared, telling myself it is fine. I can keep my hands in my pockets. The driver does not look at me. He does not say good morning. He just stares straight ahead, both hands on the wheel, engine idling too smoothly, like it has been waiting for me specifically. I swipe my pass out of habit, even though the terminal is empty and no one is watching. The machine beeps green. I take a seat halfway down the aisle on the right side, where I always sit. The vinyl is cold through my coat. I glance at my phone to check the time and feel a small pulse of relief when I see I am still early. I tell myself this is just another morning, another shift, another ride I have taken so many times I could do it asleep. The bus does not move. At first I assume we are waiting for a late passenger. That happens sometimes. I lean back and close my eyes for a moment, thinking about the machine I will be assigned today, hoping it is not the one that jams if you breathe wrong. A minute passes, then another. I open my eyes and look forward. The doors are still closed. The terminal beyond the glass is silent. I can see snow packed against the outer doors, thick enough that no one could push through without help. I clear my throat and say, softly at first, "Is everything okay?" The driver does not respond. His face in the mirror is blank, not angry or distracted, just empty in a way that makes my stomach tighten. I try again, louder. "Excuse me, are we waiting for someone?" This time he speaks, but he does not turn around. "We'll leave when the bus is full." I laugh, because that is absurd, and because laughing feels safer than letting the other feeling rise. It never fills up. You know that? "It is too early." He nods once. "We leave when the bus is full." I look around. There are maybe 10 empty seats visible from where I sit, probably more behind me. I consider getting up and knocking on the door between the driver's area and the aisle, but something in his tone stops me. It is not threatening. It is final. I sit back and tell myself this is a misunderstanding. Maybe there is a new policy. Maybe he is joking badly. I pull out my phone again, but there is no signal. That is strange. There is always at least a weak connection here. I try restarting it. Nothing changes. The heater hums. The engine continues to idle. 5 more minutes pass. My annoyance begins to turn sharp. I stand and walk forward, my boots loud in the quiet bus. "I need to get to work," I say. "If we are not leaving, I need to get off." He finally turns his head slightly, just enough that I can see his eye in the mirror. "We leave when the bus is full." "Open the door," I say, trying to keep my voice steady. "Please." He turns back forward. The doors do not open. I step back, my heart thudding now, and that is when I hear it. The soft sound of someone sitting down. The vinyl creaks. I spin around, every muscle tight, and stare at the row behind me. One seat is no longer empty. A man sits there, hands folded in his lap, wearing a factory jacket like mine but older, the logo faded almost white. His face is pale, his eyes fixed forward. I did not hear the doors open. I did not see him board. "Did you just get on?" I ask, my voice thinner than I want it to be. He does not respond. I look toward the front. The driver has not reacted. It is as if this is expected. I swallow and move back to my seat, keeping my eyes on the man as I pass. He smells faintly of oil and cold metal. I sit down and hug my coat around myself. My thoughts race, trying to build a logical explanation. Maybe I was distracted. Maybe he was there the whole time and I missed it. The bus is long. It is early. People are quiet in the mornings. Another sound. Another seat. This time I see it happen. The seat across the aisle, 2 rows ahead, compresses as if someone invisible has sat down, then slowly, horribly, a shape resolves. A woman, her hair tied back in the same way mine is, her boots dusted with white. She stares at her hands, flexing her fingers as if testing them. My chest tightens. I whisper, "No," without meaning to. The woman lifts her head and looks directly at me. Her eyes are bloodshot, rimmed with red. "We will leave soon," she says, and her voice sounds like mine after a long shift, scraped raw. I shake my head hard, like I can dislodge what I am seeing. "This is not happening," I say. "This is not real." More seats fill, slowly, one by one. Men and women in work clothes, some older, some younger. A few I recognize vaguely, faces I have passed in the locker room or at the coffee machine. Others are strangers, their expressions distant, their skin too still. No one boards. They just appear, accompanied by that soft vinyl sound, that unbearable normality. I stand again, panic flooding me now, and run to the front. I pound on the door separating the driver. "Stop this," I shout. "Let me off. Please." He finally turns fully toward me. His face is lined, tired, not unkind. "You already got on," he says. "You are where you need to be." "I am not," I say. My voice breaks. "I do not belong here," he sighs, like someone who has had this conversation many times. Everyone says that. I stumble back, nearly tripping over my own feet, and collapse into my seat. Tears blur my vision. I feel stupid and terrified and deeply, profoundly alone. The bus is nearly full now. The air feels heavier, pressing against my chest. The woman across the aisle leans toward me. "First time?" she asks gently. I nod, unable to speak. She gives a small, sad smile. I cried too. "What is this?" I whisper. "Where are we going?" She looks forward again. "You already know." The last seat fills with a soft creak. The driver nods, once satisfied, and the bus finally lurches into motion. As it pulls away, I glance out the window and see the terminal still sealed, untouched, as if no bus has left at all. My phone vibrates in my pocket. For a brief, wild second, hope flares. I pull it out. It is a notification from the factory system, time-stamped a few minutes earlier, listing my name under unexcused absence. I laugh then, a short, hysterical sound, and the woman beside me reaches out and takes my hand. Her skin is cold, but solid. "It will be over soon," she says. The bus drives on, and I understand, with a clarity that hurts, that I am not late for work. I am exactly on time. I was halfway down the front steps when the radio inside the school crackled again and said school was cancelled, same calm voice, same flat tone. Like it had not already told us that 10 minutes earlier. I stopped with one boot on the icy concrete and looked back through the glass doors. The hallway behind me was empty. No teachers, no kids, no echo of lockers. Just that voice repeating itself, telling everyone to go home, telling everyone it was a snow day. I pulled my hat down tighter and stepped outside. My breath felt loud in my ears. The parking lot should have been full of parents by then, engines idling, but it was bare. No tire tracks, no footprints except mine. I told myself they had already left, that I was late, that I had been tying my shoe too long, or something stupid like that. I started walking. The first thing that felt wrong was how quiet my boots sounded. Every step landed too softly, like the ground was swallowing the noise. I kept my head down and followed the sidewalk like I always did, past the flagpole, past the chain link fence. I counted steps because that is what I did when I got nervous. 1, 2, 3. I was already thinking about my mom being mad that I did not come straight home. Halfway to the corner, I heard the radio again. Not behind me this time. Beside me. I stopped and turned my head slowly. The voice was coming from the snowbank near the fence. Clear as day. Same announcement, same words. I walked closer, heart pounding, and saw an old portable radio half buried in the snow, antenna bent, speaker facing up. No snow inside the grill. It looked like someone had just set it there. I reached down and turned the knob. The sound did not change. I turned it harder. Nothing. I lifted it and it was warm. That made my stomach drop. Radios were not supposed to be warm. I left it where it was and backed away, then turned and walked faster. At the corner, I expected to see the bakery. It was not there. The street was the same street, same curve, same light pole, but the building on the corner was wrong. It was the old gym from my school. Same cracked brick, same broken windows taped in an X. I stood there staring, trying to understand how I had walked in a straight line and ended up back where I started. I laughed once, sharp and ugly, because that is what my body did when it did not know what else to do. I told myself I had taken the wrong turn. I crossed the street and walked the other way, away from the school, counting again, faster now. 1, 2, 3, 4. I did not look back. The radio voice followed me, not louder, not quieter, just there. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, like the air itself was talking. It kept repeating the same message, telling students to go home, telling parents not to pick up their children, telling everyone the same thing over and over. I started running. My backpack bounced against my spine. My breath burned. When I finally stopped, doubled over, I was standing in front of the school doors again. My footprints made a messy loop behind me, like I had been pacing in circles the whole time. I went inside because I did not know what else to do. The doors unlocked easily. The hallway lights were on, but they hummed too loud. I called out for a teacher. My voice sounded small and wrong. No answer. The radio was mounted on the wall near the office. Speaker crackling. I walked up to it and unplugged it. The voice kept going. I yanked the cord from the wall. Still talking, I screamed then. I did not plan to. It just came out. The sound bounced back at me from the lockers, too many echoes, like more than one person was screaming. I ran again, out the doors, down the steps, straight ahead, refusing to look at anything. When I finally dared to slow down, I was not at the school. I was on my street. My house was there. Porch light on, smoke coming from the chimney. Relief hit me so hard my knees shook. I walked up to the door and knocked. No answer. I knocked again, harder, shouting for my mom. The radio voice drifted from inside the house, muffled by the door. I felt sick. I did not go in. I turned around and walked back toward the school, because at least there I knew what was happening. Halfway there, I saw someone standing in the road. A boy my size, wearing the same coat as me. He was facing away. I called out. He did not turn. I stepped closer and saw the back of his head. My hairline. My cowlick. I froze. He turned slowly. It was my face, but wrong. Too still. Eyes not blinking. Mouth opening and closing in time with the radio voice. Words spilling out of him like he was the speaker. I backed away until I hit the fence. He stepped forward, matching me. I realized then what the message was doing. It was not canceling school. It was clearing the town. Sending everyone away. Leaving only the ones who heard it too late. I covered my ears and ran past him. The sound faded as I ran, not gone but weaker. I ran until my lungs screamed, until my legs stopped feeling like mine. I ran straight, never turning, never stopping. Eventually, the noise was gone. I found myself at the edge of town, where the road dipped down toward the river. I collapsed there, crying, hands over my ears, waiting for the voice to come back. It did not. Someone found me hours later, a plow driver. He asked where everyone else was. I could not answer. They said the radio station had glitched that morning, looped the same message for hours before anyone noticed. I never told them everything. Some things I kept to myself. Even now, when January comes, I do not listen to the radio. I walk the long way home. And sometimes, when the town is quiet, I still hear that voice telling me to go home, telling me it never ended. I was halfway through scraping ice off the salt spreader when the radio crackled and died. And I remember thinking that was strange because the unit had just been serviced. I slammed the metal hatch shut harder than I needed to, my gloves stiff with brine, and climbed into the cab with that irritated focus you get when you're already cold and behind schedule. The night shift roster was short again, just me and Lars running opposite ends of the outskirts, logging usage so the municipality could justify the budget come spring. I turned the key, waited for the engine to settle, and pulled the ledger closer so I could jot down the starting weight before heading out. The ledger wasn't new. None of our paperwork ever was. Thick, grey-blue cover, swollen from years of damp hands and salt dust, pages ruled with columns for date, route, tonnage, operator. I flipped to the next blank line. Pen poised, and froze when I saw the date already written there. It wasn't today's date. It was a date decades ahead of us, written neatly, like someone had taken their time. I actually laughed under my breath, the kind of short laugh you do when you think someone's pulled a stupid joke. I flipped the page. Same thing. Another future date, and another, all in the same handwriting. My first thought was that some office clerk had reused an old ledger for training or something and misdated it. But then I saw the names. Lars's name, Mikhail's, Johan's, guys I'd worked with for years, each name lined up with a date, a route, and a salt amount. The amounts were precise, down to fractions we never bothered with in practice. My throat tightened in a way I couldn't explain. I told myself it was just fatigue. That night work messes with your head, and I flipped back to today's page to write my entry like normal. My pen hovered again. Today's line was already filled in. My name, my route, the exact starting weight I'd just checked on the scale, before I'd even written it. I sat there with the engine idling, the vibration coming up through the seat, and I felt suddenly very aware of my breathing, like I'd forgotten how to do it naturally. I checked the dash clock. It matched the time written beside my name in the ledger. I closed the book and rested my hands on top of it, palms flat, as if that might steady things. I radioed Lars. No answer. I tried again, keeping my voice casual. And when he finally came back, it was with that annoyed tone he used when he thought someone was wasting airtime. I asked him if he'd messed with the ledger earlier, maybe as a joke. He snorted and told me he hadn't even been near the depot office, that he'd been out salting since the start of shift. I told him I thought the ledger was wrong somehow. He said everything was wrong with the paperwork in that place and told me to get moving before the roads iced worse. So I did. I drove my route, spreading salt, stopping to check trouble spots, writing down the numbers that the ledger already seemed to know. Every time I opened it, my stomach tightened. The entries for later that night were there too. Break times, refills, a short note in the margin beside Lars's name that just said delayed. I told myself not to look ahead anymore. I focused on the road, on the mechanical rhythm of the work, on the way the spreader hummed when it was running right. An hour later, the radio crackled again. Lars's voice came through, strained, asking if I'd already passed the old quarry turnoff. I told him no. I was still a few kilometers out. There was a pause, then he said his truck was stuck, wheels spinning like they weren't touching anything solid. I told him to stay put and that I'd swing by after finishing my section. He said something else then, something about the road not matching his map. But the radio cut out before I could hear it clearly. I finished my route faster than I should have, my eyes flicking to the ledger on the seat beside me even though I didn't want to. When I finally gave in and opened it, my hands were shaking. Lars's line for the night ended with a note I hadn't seen before. Vehicle recovered. Operator missing. The words looked official, like they'd been copied from some report, not something someone scribbled as a joke. I reached the quarry turnoff and found his truck idling, lights on, door open. There were tracks in the snow leading up to it, but none leading away. I called his name until my voice went hoarse. I checked the cab, the back, the ditch. Nothing. The road there dipped slightly, and for a moment I had this dizzy sensation that the ground itself was wrong. Like it was sloping more than it should, pulling my balance forward. I backed away and got in my truck, heart pounding, and called it in the way we were trained to do when something went wrong. They found the truck exactly where I said it was. They didn't find Lars. They said he must have wandered off, disoriented, and succumbed to the cold. It was a clean explanation, one everyone could accept. I couldn't. Not with the ledger sitting in my locker, its pages heavy with what felt like certainty. I should have turned it in. I know that. But something in me needed to understand it first, like if I could trace the logic, I could undo what had happened. Over the next weeks, I started checking it obsessively. I memorized future entries. I watched as they came true in small, mundane ways. A blown tire exactly where it was predicted. A spill that matched the recorded tonnage loss. It was never dramatic at first, just precise. Then Johan didn't come back from a late run. Then Mikkel. Always night shifts. Always winter. Always names crossing from future pages into the present and then being marked in a different ink with the same word. Missing. I tried to warn people without sounding insane. I told them to switch shifts to avoid certain routes. Some listened. Some didn't. The ledger adjusted when they did, names sliding to different dates, different outcomes. It was like watching a system recalibrate, indifferent to who got caught in it, as long as the columns stayed filled. Eventually, my own final entry appeared. Not missing. Transferred. Date still years away. I stared at that word for a long time, feeling something like relief and dread tangled together. I didn't know what it meant, but it wasn't disappearance. I held on to that. I took the ledger to the depot manager and told him everything, laying it out calmly, showing him the matches, the dates, the notes that had come true. He listened, face pale, and then he locked it in his office and told me to go home, to take some time off. When I came back, the ledger was gone. So was he. His name appeared later in a different copy, one I found tucked behind old maps in the archive room, like it had always been there waiting. I quit after that. I moved south, took a job that didn't involve winter roads or night shifts. Years passed. I tried to forget. And then last month, I got a letter forwarded from the municipality. No return address. Inside was a single photocopied page. My name. A date that is now only days away. And beside it, in that same careful handwriting, the word transferred.